right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies might have inspired it. And today on the show, we are talking about Tuner, a fantastic new movie that's in theaters right now. And if you haven't seen it yet, pause the podcast, run to the theaters. I think it's only playing in 3 theaters here in Las Vegas at the time of this recording, so it's in fairly limited release, but see it now. It is great. One of my favorites of the year, and I am excited to talk about it. Joining me to talk about it is Josh Bell from Awesome Movie Year. We got a lot of puzzle pieces to get into on this one. So that's coming up in a second. Before we get to it, I do want to remind you, as always, to make sure you are subscribed to Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on social media at PiecingPod, and don't forget to join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, where we continue the conversation about all the movies we talk about here on the show. And also, I'll give a little shout out to our Wax Trax Records record store, where a lot of the times I've got some good jazz playing in the background, including some from certain someone who there's a cameo by in the movie, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, let's get to our conversation about Tuner. Josh Bell, do you got yourself some nice jazz music playing in the background to get ready for this podcast today?
I got my earplugs in so I don't have to listen to you, I think is
okay.
what we're going to do.
Good. Sure, that works too. We're going to talk about Tuner, and it's been a while since you've been on the show. Happy to have you back on, Josh.
Yeah, good to be here. You always got these big live shenanigans going on, and I haven't participated in those, but I'm glad that I get to do something here. It's always enjoyable.
And this is a movie I love, so I'm super excited to talk about it. This is going to be a fun one. I think we'll get into some good puzzle pieces here. And also a movie that I feel like just came out of nowhere. I know this director was like a big documentary filmmaker and then just like randomly like, oh yeah, and also I want to make a movie about a piano tuner who gets caught up with gangsters.
Yeah, I think I had read about it at some festivals. I don't know. I don't remember if it was at Sundance or South by Southwest or one of those big fests. And it had gotten some good reviews, but the theatrical release does seem to have been pretty low key. Black Bear I think is the distributor, and that's they kind of are still a small scale one.
They put out a lot of good stuff, but yeah, it's very small scale though.
Right, it's weird. I mean, I think they put out that Jason Statham movie Shelter that they did a bigger release for, but this was weird. I saw this in the special early Dolby showing or whatever, which is designed to showcase all of the cool sound here. And there weren't a ton of people at that. I feel like that was not, people didn't know about it that much. And then when it came out in its regular release, it has been pretty low key. And I mean, you got Dustin Hoffman. He's pretty famous. I feel like people maybe could have been more interested in this. Who knows how all that stuff works.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And Lior Woodall, I feel like he's somebody who is going to get pretty damn big eventually. He just seems to have that movie star charisma if he just gets some more bigger roles, which I think, isn't he going to be in a Lord of the Rings or something like that?
Yeah, I think in that ridiculous Hunt for Gollum movie that Andy Serkis is making.
But maybe it'll be something. But
I mean,
he's got to do something good though, I think.
It'll be high profile, even if it's not good. So, that helps. But yeah, he was on the Netflix show Vladimir. He was Vladimir. And I watched that, and he's good on that. It was kind of, I was mixed on the show overall, but it's a tough character to play because it's like just sort of a symbol more than a person, because it's the main character's obsession. And he did a good job with that one too. And I like him in this movie as well. It's a good one. I think I didn't like it quite as much as you did, but I definitely enjoyed it. It's a good movie.
Well, let's start getting into some puzzle pieces. What do you got first?
So I'm going to start out with Baby Driver, Edgar Wright's music-driven thriller, and another movie where the main character is sort of a savant, I guess, in a way. I mean, there he is, this expert driver, and in order to lock in with his focus on driving, he has to he plays music. He doesn't have any sort of specific disability in that film, but I think you could argue, and I this is not from personal experience, so maybe I'm off base, but I feel like both these characters, both in Baby Driver and here in Tuner, that these characters are kind of autistic coded, even if they never say it specifically. And so part of that is the need for this like specific ritual in order to perform this task that they are especially good at, whether it's the safe cracking here or the driving in Baby Driver. And then just the way that the movie is cut to music, right? I mean, there's a
Sure.
lot of edits in this film that are built around that jazz soundtrack or the classical music or whatever. And even more so in Baby Driver, where, you know, the action on screen often corresponds to the sounds of, and that's like
It's
pop
the
and
whole
rock
movie.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like Nikki the Tuner and Baby Driver could team up and, you know, they'd be unstoppable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great one to kick this off with, and definitely as far as a movie that has music as like the heart of it, and the way that this character is driven forward, it's definitely a good one to include here. I will go to a movie. I believe you were my guest on the episode, Emily the Criminal.
Oh yeah,
Um,
maybe I was, but it's a good movie. Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as someone who does not have any kind of a background of crime or anything, no interest in crime, but happens to find out they have a knack for this one specific thing, and they're like, well, sure, all right, I guess this is what I'm doing now, and they start going down that path. And of course, we know it's going to be a destructive path. We know that there's going to be a lot of problems along the way, but it is such a thrill to watch them go down that path anyway, and to see if they can kind of make it through and kind of ride that line. And I guess I didn't realize it until just now, but I guess I brought up Breaking Bad on that episode. We could kind of bring Breaking Bad in as a bonus piece there because that was on Emily the Criminal as well, and I think it works here too.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, in Emily the Criminal, right, she has a bunch of student debt that she feels like she's uh, pressed to go into this criminal activity so she can pay off the student debt. And here we have Nikki trying to pay off the medical bills of
Sure,
Dustin Hoffman's character, and which also connects into Breaking Bad because, of course, you know, that's based on medical costs as
sure.
well. So, I mean, I think in Breaking Bad, I mean, the idea ultimately is like, he's a bad guy and he
Yeah,
wanted to
he
be a criminal
ultimately
anyway.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whereas
yeah,
here, I think, and even with Emily the Criminal, who is more of a, like, she's maybe reluctant at first, but then she really gets into being a criminal.
yeah.
But I feel like she's more of a, a good person maybe
Hmm.
than Walter White. And certainly Nicky here, we're always meant to see him as a good person. And he never really gets excited about being a criminal.
Sure, sure. And you know, it's funny. I've seen a lot of like criticism about the ending of this movie and that it gets a happy ending. And like, I think this movie certainly is a little predictable, but at the same time, I think that the fact that he's a good person and that we like this character, like, why wouldn't we want to see him like come out at least somewhat on top by the end?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I think what bugged me about the ending more was just, and I don't know if we want to spoil it, but just
Yes.
the contrived, like the fact that like this particular guy who is so important to his girlfriend's career somehow happened to also be a guy that Nikki stole from,
Yep.
and he happened to have that very personalized object that he gave to the girlfriend, and she happened to be wearing it during the meeting with this guy. That was, to me, like that was the point where I was like, I feel like this is too much. I didn't need this. I was already invested in what was going on. I didn't need this twist here.
I completely understand that criticism, and I will just say movie magic. That's all it
Yeah.
is. But
Yeah.
let's go to another puzzle piece. What do you got next?
So this is, I think people have mentioned this a lot, that this kind of harkens back to some 70s style thrillers. So I'm going to go with Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation,
Hmm.
also very sound based. And Gene Hackman's character, it's not really a main part of his character, but he is a musician. He plays the saxophone in a
Hmm.
way that's sort of like melancholy and
Sure.
represents his loneliness. Um, and he becomes, you know, obsessed with the sounds that he can hear or not hear and what they mean. And, you know, I think here we're not, you know, that movie is all about like surveillance, and that's not what this movie is about, but it's very much about this sort of like fixation on sound and how that like facilitates criminal activity, and also sort of puts the main character in danger, right?
Yeah.
The idea that what he can hear is creating these problems for him. So, I mean, I think this is a lot more upbeat. You mentioned the happy ending than those, 70s style conspiracy thrillers. But in terms of the approach and the character driven aspect of it, and that kind of thing, I think this definitely connects to those movies.
No, absolutely, and I think the way that sound is such a major part of this character, regardless of being deaf or not. Like it is who he is. Music, pianos, jazz, all that kind of stuff. Sound is so important, and then it becomes important to this thing that he ends up doing. So, yeah, definitely a good one there. I'll go a little bit later to 81 and Thief, Michael Mann. As far as that kind of subgenre of these guys who are just really good at what they do, and just how thrilling that could be to watch when they just like go in it, and what a good filmmaker is able to capture that happening, and how exciting it could be. James Caan in Thief is kind of like the sacred text of the this particular subgenre. We see it in a lot of other movies since then, and I feel like it's definitely an influence on this. And this movie definitely gets a little flashy at times too. Maybe not Michael Mann level, but certainly this director Daniel Roher is coming out swinging, trying to impress here.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned how he came out of documentaries, and I haven't seen any of his documentaries, but I feel like a lot of times documentary filmmakers go into narrative film and they approach it with a documentary style, which
Right,
is
right.
which is fine, and they can capture something really naturalistic, but this is not like that at all. This is very stylized in a cool way, and I like that he seems to have made a conscious decision of like, I'm going to approach filmmaking in a different way when I'm making this narrative film versus a documentary.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to another one. What's next?
So, well, I will stick with the 80s then and go with Blowout, Brian De Palma's film from 1981 starring John Travolta. And, again, it's like The Conversation, sound-based kind of paranoid thriller, but also more like this where, in The Conversation the main character is already part of this sort of shady world. He's a surveillance kind of consultant. People hire him to spy on other people. But John Travolta's character just sort of stumbles into this danger, right? He's a sound engineer and all very sensitive to noises, much
Hmm.
like Nikki is here. He's trying to record background sounds for a movie when he hears something that he's not supposed to hear. And in a way, that's kind of where Nikki gets introduced, right? He's just there tuning a piano and he hears these guys upstairs trying to break into the safe and walks right into this criminal enterprise that he had no idea that he was going to get involved with, and it changes his life. So, yeah, I mean, and I think again, as with The Conversation and everything, the focus on the little minute aspects of sound and how important that those can be is something that De Palma does there as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I still haven't seen it. It's been on my
Ah,
watch list forever, but it's definitely one that I thought of, and so I'm looking forward to watching it one of these days. Uh, I will go to a movie that you brought to my attention. Well, I'll go to the whole filmography of Damien Chazelle. Why
all
not?
right.
Yeah, but we'll go with one that he wrote called Grand Piano, which is the movie that you brought to my attention.
Love Grand Piano.
Such a great movie, and as far as a movie that mixes piano playing, jazz music, and a thriller, it's definitely a different kind of a movie than this one. It's much more, I would say, action packed. Maybe not action packed, but more thriller than this one is. This one almost kind of gets more romantic at times, tuner, and more comedic, and whereas Grand Piano is a straight up thriller. But they both mix that really, really well. And then just speaking of Damien Chazelle as well, I mean, we could talk about Whiplash. We could talk a little bit about La La Land, about white guys who love jazz. That is definitely a through point of all of his movies, it seems like.
Yeah, I had Whiplash on the list here, and the
Yeah.
idea, we get a bit into like the intensity of being someone who studies music with Havana Rose Liu's character,
Yeah.
who is, is a graduate student, is in a conservatory, is so, fixated on everything being perfect. And we don't get a teacher character like in Whiplash, but I think we get the sense of that dedication. And of course, Nicky has that background that he had to give up. And, we don't learn a ton about that, but I think it comes out of that same place. You could see someone like J.K. Simmons' character working at this conservatory and someone like
Hmm.
Miles Teller's character being a student there.
Totally.
So, Yeah, definitely. But as we talked about on Awesome Movie Year, I'm not a Whiplash fan, but I do love grand piano. So
There you
happy
go.
to
Right
happy to
on.
have that in there.
Right on. And by the way, Havana Rose Lee, also great in this movie. I haven't
Yeah,
really
yeah.
seen
And
her
you
in
mentioned the
anything.
romance, and I should have come up with some more romance based puzzle pieces. Maybe you have some, but I mean, for a long time, it really is that. And what I liked is I felt like too, I mean, it starts out and you got the buddy dynamic, right? With him and Dustin Hoffman as the mentor, and they're kind of cracking jokes and giving each other uh a hard time about their lives or whatever. And I would have been
Yeah.
cool with just like crotchety old piano tuner teaches young protege movie, and then you get the romance, and that would have been good too. And then you have the thriller aspect that kind of takes the spotlight, but all of that stuff works well together.
A lot of good stuff in there. You know what? I'll throw in a piece here. As far since you had your Whiplash in there, I'll throw in A Quiet Place. As far as somebody with some kind of ear affliction that kind of helps them out in the situation that they get themselves into. Like it turns out to be almost. It's funny. There's a point in this movie where they show the tape deck and it says Super Tuner, and I was like,
Yeah.
almost like a superhero kind of a thing because of the ear affliction and. So like the way that becomes the way that they survive the ordeal is like a major part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea that someone's disability is a superpower, I think, is something that is often it seems insulting to
Yeah.
people who have that disability.
But they certainly put it in a lot of movies though.
Yeah,
So
they do. They certainly
yeah.
do. And, I think this movie tries to be sensitive, but I was looking, when I was looking up, trying to find references to this film, look for ideas for this. And I did find the subreddit for hyperacusis, which is the
Oh.
condition that this character has. And they're mostly not pleased with this film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, can't please everybody. What are you
Yeah.
gonna
I mean, although a lot of it is just based on trailers and speculations, because the other thing that they say is if you have this condition, you cannot go to a movie theater to watch a movie.
Oh, especially not in Dolby Cinema where
Yeah.
Josh got to see it.
Yeah,
So
so I don't know how many of them really were able to see it, but the idea that it's not a superpower, it's like makes your life it's unpleasant, it's difficult,
yeah,
but I think the movie at least tries to get that across
I
with
think so.
him,
Yeah,
yeah, doing its
absolutely.
best.
Well, let's go on to another one. What do you got?
So, well, I mean, speaking of all that, I was thinking of Sound of Metal, which
Yeah.
is another movie about, a musician character who ends up with a hearing disability and has to cope with that. And, in a way, that story is representative of what perhaps Nicky dealt with a few years prior to the events of this film, right? Having to readjust his entire life. He mentions at one point to Havana Rose Liu, like, I spent years, sort of training myself just so that I have the ability to like sit here and listen to you play the piano.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what the character has to go through. Riz Ahmed's character has to go through in Sound of Metal and has to readjust his entire life and certainly his approach to being a musician when he is suddenly afflicted with this condition. And I mean, I don't know enough about hyperacusis if that comes on as suddenly as the hearing loss that the character experiences in Sound of Metal, but I think it's not necessarily something you're born with, like a lot of deafness can be. It's something that people acquire, and
Yeah.
so to have to deal with that, and he doesn't commit any crimes, but again, could be hanging out with Miles Teller from Whiplash, and
100%.
they're gonna
Yeah.
form a super group, maybe.
Would would J.K. Simmons be pleased with his drumming though? That's the question.
I don't know. It's probably a little too undisciplined because he's playing metal
Yeah.
music, and I don't know
Yeah.
that he has the precision that J.K. Simmons would want.
Yeah. I will say, like, even if the representation is not perfect, like there's a lot of these like conditions that I know I didn't know were different specific conditions. And I think these movies, as a side point of the movies, they certainly do shine a light on those things.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I didn't look up beyond this if Leo Woodall did research, if he spent
Sure.
time with people who have hyperacusis or anything like that. I would hope. I think I saw something about the writer director hanging out with a piano tuner, but I don't know about the hyperacusis aspect of it. So
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Well, my last puzzle piece is going to be a movie we talked about on Awesome Movie Year. It's called Boiler Room with Giovanni Ribisi.
Oof.
I know you don't like this one, but I love it. But about a nice guy who kind of lets some bad guys talk him into doing some shitty shit, and he thinks he's doing it for fairly okay reasons. Like, yeah, I know this is a crime, but at the same time, like, the people that are getting ripped off, like they're kind of assholes anyway, so whatever. Like, it's kind of that same way of trying to talk somebody into giving away their morals and like doing something that's really shitty. And you watch it in a very cringy kind of way, like like, oh, you really know this is not going to end well. Don't you know that? But they do it anyway and suffer the consequences.
Yeah, I felt a lot more sympathy for Nikki in this movie than for anyone in that
Yeah,
movie.
that's absolutely fair. Yes.
And yeah, but I mean, it does have that aspect, right? There's that one scene where the what is his name, Yuri, I think, the sort
Yeah,
of
you're right.
criminal leader, tells Nikki this whole story about this guy they're going to rob, is like this predatory lending mogul who, forecloses on poor people's homes.
Yeah,
And then it turns out that's a complete lie, and the guy
sure.
makes blenders or whatever, like something else, but tells him whatever he needs to tell him. And obviously by the time they get to the point of stealing from Jean Reno's character, the big twist at the end there, they're definitely not stealing something that will not be missed, or stealing from some terrible person. They're stealing this extremely personal memento from a guy who seems like a very nice, pleasant guy, is a renowned musician. So
He's the maestro.
he
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
the maestro.
I feel like Boiler Room might also fit something. I was trying to think of a good puzzle piece where I couldn't think of a good one, but a movie with schmucky villains. It kind of fits that a little bit. But
Yeah, although weirdly, like, I feel like one of the things that's interesting about this movie is that even though, yes, eventually Yuri turns violent, he isn't really that bad a guy for the
right,
most part.
he's kind of like a schmucky goof that's like doing bad stuff and pushing
Right.
people to do bad stuff. Like,
And he
yeah,
genuinely likes Nikki and wants to help him out. And as long as Nikki, does what he's supposed to do, they're all buddy buddy and everything. So
yeah, I like that about this movie a lot.
yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
did too. I feel like it could have easily ended up with some evil crime boss character or whatever. We never get that. So I did
yeah.
like that about that.
Well, any other puzzle pieces you want to bring up?
My last one is The Lookout with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. A movie about someone with a disability who is kind of coerced into participating in a crime, and that does not go well for him. And a movie that I don't know. I'd have to look again at the response to that movie at the time. Maybe wasn't well regarded in terms of its sensitivity, but that seemed to me when I was watching it to be a movie that's kind of sensitive toward its character's disability and is able to represent that well while also telling this exciting kind of heist thriller crime story. So,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I also thought of and then rejected, but now I kind of wonder about The Accountant with Ben Affleck as
Sure,
the
sure.
autistic, expert in a certain field. And in that case, he's not coerced, right? And that is
Yeah.
really autism as a superpower, where not only does it make him a great accountant, but also like a great assassin. And it's a stupid ass movie. But
It is, but at the same time, like whether or not it's a great puzzle piece, it is like in squarely in that realm of movies that we want to see more of. Like the movies that are right there in the middle. They're not big giant blockbusters. They're not like cheap. Like the Tuner feels like a really good movie, and I feel like The Accountant was that too. Whether you liked it or not, I feel like it was like right in that I don't know.
yeah, like in terms of that like style and level, I would put it more alongside The Lookout than The Accountant.
All right. I don't even
Yeah.
remember The Lookout. I was trying to remember if
Oh,
I've
Scott
seen
Frank
that.
is a good one. You should check it out. It's really like well-crafted heist thriller. Jeff Daniels, I think, is also in it as like a blind guy who's the main character's kind of support
Wow.
system. So yeah, Jeff Daniels and Matthew Good as the villain. So yeah, it's a really solid, again, 70s style, low key thriller, very, very well made. So
I feel
check
like I
that out.
actually did see it
Oh,
back when it
okay.
came out, like opening weekend, but yeah, no, it's been a long time. So I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to watch that again sometime. But
fair enough. Fair enough.
yeah, we got into a lot of great stuff here, Josh. Any closing thoughts you want to talk about here?
I mean, I liked it. it sounds like you really liked it, but
Oh yeah.
I certainly recommend my reservations about the final twist aside. I certainly recommend this movie. And as you said, the kind of movie that we'd like to see more of and more of in theaters. It's a shame that the theatrical release has kind of been shaky because it's the kind of movie that you could see having just gone direct to streaming, but it was cool to see, and experience all that sound in the theater.
Yeah. I'll just end on saying Holocaust Watch has bad juju.
Yes.
So,
True, exactly.
yeah.
You don't want to mess with that kind of thing. Definitely
No,
not.
not at all. Josh, is there another movie you watched recently you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, I was going to recommend Mile End Kicks, the film from Chandler Levac, who directed I Like Movies. And this is, you could call it I Like Music, maybe. It is a coming of age story about a 20 something music journalist played by Barbie Ferreira, who is really, really good in this film. I like her a lot. Um, and I liked it even more than I Like Movies, even though on the one hand, I'm more of a movie person than a music person, but it's set in, I think it's 2011 in Montreal, as that indie music scene is just coming up. And so it's this young woman kind of figuring out her life as she writes for an alt weekly. And it definitely, I identified with a lot of the professional aspects of her life, if not the
Mm.
personal aspects. But it's just a really fun, it's funny, it's warm, it's got great characters, it's a really good romantic comedy, it's a good coming of age story. And I still haven't seen Roommates, the Happy Madison movie that Chandler Levac directed that came out the same day as this
Oh
film on
yeah.
Netflix. But I feel like she's off to an amazing start on her career. And so this one is really good. I think it's on VOD to rent now, Mile End Kicks.
All right, I'm gonna have to check it out. It sounds great and sounds like something right up my alley. So yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah,
check it out.
give it a shot.
Well, Josh, where can people find you? What's going on with Awesome Movie Year? Tell us everything.
Awesome Movie Year. I don't know when this is coming out, but probably Awesome Movie Year is currently in the midst of our 1946 season. I'm always excited when we can look back even further in film history. So check that out wherever you listen to podcasts. We're also on awesomemoviepod.com and Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and Instagram. I have some old things at joshbellhateseverything.com. I'm at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky, and on Letterboxd, and I'm on KTNV Channel 13 News, 11 a.m. on Fridays here every week if you're in Las Vegas.
Awesome. Well, Josh, we will talk to you again sometime soon.
Look forward to it.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation about Tuner. Thank you to Josh Bell for joining me on that one, and thank you to all of you for listening. If you're enjoying piecing it together, make sure you're subscribed. Also follow us on social media at Piecing Pod, where you can get in touch. I always love to hear the listener puzzle pieces. I'll tell you right after we finish recording, we started talking about how Between the Temples could have been another puzzle piece for this episode. If you thought of any puzzle pieces for this or any other recent episode of Piecing It Together, send them in. I'd love to hear them, and I will read them on the next Trailers episode, where I do a little segment reading people's listener puzzle pieces from all of the recent episodes. Love hearing from you all. At Piecing Pod on the socials, or check out our Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces Facebook group. Also another plug for Wax Trax Records. Lots of jazz records to come check out if you're into that kind of thing. And with that said, let's close this out with a piece of music like I always do. And you know what? I'm actually just getting ready to release a new soundtrack album. And I'm going to play something from that, because there's a track on the album. It's got a little bit of a jazz flavor to it. It's a track called Whose Proposition Is It Anyway? So this album, it's called Friday and Friday. It's the full score to a action buddy cop movie called Friday and Friday that will also be out this month, by the way. But the director, Chris Johnson, is someone who I've worked with many times over the years, and along with the main score, I also included some bonus music from some of our other collaborations over the last few years. And Whose Proposition Is It Anyway was a short film that we worked on together. And so that's what this is. So I am going to play the main theme from Whose Proposition Is It Anyway, which is on the new soundtrack album, Friday and Friday. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll be back with more Piecing It Together real soon.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.